So Delancey actually pointed out that even though we consciously teach the pelvic floor to contract, like, this neck maneuver that is, like widely used, that you ask the patient to, like squeeze and lift the pelvic floor when they, like rising up. So Delancey actually rising up or sitting down, or like before a cough maybe, but Delancey pointed out that yes, it works, but only in that cough, and then it requires to be the patient to be conscious every time there is going to be an extra load on pelvic floor to be continent, and that's not so practical actually. So then the question comes: how are we going to, like facilitate that pelvic floor, pelvic floors that automatic reflexive function in the, like the activities of daily living, and without adding a conscious part to it. And then Hodges and some other people that I'm not going to be able to remember their name, but it's an article related to the connection between the relationship between the respiration, incontinence or continence, and postural, and posture. Okay, so, and what they found out is that there is actually an extra work on specifically the external obliques on women that they are having severe stress incontinence problem. And that was actually something that I was observing in the clinic, that people with incontinence, they tend to squeeze their abdominal muscles too much, and all of the time during the day, like when they were talking, laughing, and even when they're just sitting. So that was something that I was observing, but I was thinking that it was the rectus abdominis overactivity. But then with this article, I realized that it's actually the external oblique overactivity, and they were suggesting that unless you can, like find a way to make people, like relax their abdominal muscles, you're not going to be able to help with the stress incontinence. And that relaxation doesn't come with the conscious thinking, because then you would have to be like, think about your abdominal muscles all of the time to keep them relaxed. But that's not how it works. So we need to find a way to facilitate that automatic reflexive relaxation of the abdominal muscles. And another thing that they have found, and which takes us to the timing issue, is that they found that with the postural adjustments that we again do automatically and reflexively, that what they found is that the people who have pelvic floor dysfunction, actually pelvic floor is late to work, even on breathing. It just starts to work after the intercostal and the other muscles that help with the breathing, and that creates a mechanism that instead of pulling everything in and up with the pelvic floor contraction during breathing, it creates kind of like a push out, and kind of like a strainy internal mechanic around the pelvic and abdominal area. And I guess it makes sense that if you have that mechanic instead of this one, it's high likely that you're going to have a problem with the continence and with pelvic organ prolapse, diastasis recti, and all sorts of things. Okay, too much talking. So let's let's see how it works. Oh, and of course, it's not just something that I see in women. That's why I wanted to have a male model today, because it applies the same way to men. It's just the problems that they, like they're having is different than women. It's big, obviously, because we have different anatomy and physiology down there. So it makes sense in that part too. So what I'm going to show you is the assessment and also the intervention, and I cannot make like a straight cut between those two. It's kind of like a process that is like interweaved with each other, and it's very unique. So for that, Abdul, can you please lie down on your back?
Yeah, sure.
And do you have any questions so far?
I have this clue. What I can understand from your speech, that it's not only the problem about the pelvic floor, it's about the whole trauma.
Yes, thank you. That's a great point that you made here. Exactly. Even though we, like always tend to think about one structure and like pelvic floor or like psoas, abdominals, or piriformis, like we kind of, when we do that, we kind of miss the whole point of body. In our bodies, nothing works in isolation. Everything works together. So to focus on one structure usually prevents us from seeing what's going on in the whole body. So even though I'm using the terms of pelvic floor dysfunction and pelvic floor activation, and I'm talking about like pelvic floors, behaviors and abdominal muscle behaviors, this is because the whole literature is using this language. But in my mind, or in my perspective, I don't see it like pelvic floor or this muscle or that muscle, but it's the whole area, and everything works together in harmony. And the problem with dysfunction is that when they lost that harmony, and I don't know which structures like doing what in that harmony, and I don't think we can know. So best way to facilitate the harmony is to accept the idea that the body knows, I don't. So what can I do to help the body to find its own harmony, and focusing on one structure, which I have tried, by the way, those exercises that contract and relax the pelvic floor, or like contract the anus, lift it up, and then relax, kind of work. And also the focus on the transversus abdominis was there for a long time, like bringing the ASIS together, or like drawing it in whenever, etc. So I've used all of those focusing on one structure interventions, and I never succeeded in getting permanent results. So you will, that was a good point that you made. So can you please lift your knees up? So I'm going to put this one, yeah, that's good. So, I usually use support under the knees, and is this comfortable for you?
Yeah, it's comfortable.
Okay. Is this better, or the straight legs were better?
This one is better.
This one is better. Okay. Even though it feels like that this is comfortable for everyone, it's not. So I always check in with my patient to find the most comfortable position for them, but not me. So this is comfortable for him. That's good. And another thing I also use is that I use this, I ask them to relax their legs, and this position helps on relaxing the adductors, which we know that they have a direct connection with the pelvic floor. And if we are unable to relax the find a position to relax the adductors, so if like the patient needs to use the adductors to be able to keep the legs, and then I can be sure that the pelvic floor is not going to be relaxed and not going to be, find that environment to work in harmony for sure. So it's important that the legs are supported, especially the adductors have that support so that they can be relaxed. So on the assessment part, what I do is that I just observe the regular breathing on this one, and I think, Burcu, can we change the angle and kind of like make it closer to here? And make a turn it towards this. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes. Exactly.
Okay.
Can we lower the camera? Biraz aşağı görebilir miyiz? Şöyle tam yandan görebilir mi bize?
You can bring the bed right there.
Can move the bed.
Yep.
No. Yeah. Sorry, I should have said that earlier, probably. And are there any questions? You can shoot me some questions. Cemre. Yes.
No, hocam, there is no question for now.
Say it again, Canım.
There is no question for now.
Okay. Yeah. That's good. Okay, yes, that's much better. And leg on top of leg, it's not a good choice. But I'll be like this so that you can see it better. So what I do is that, after taking the history and all of the talking, I'm just observing patients breathing, just naturally, okay? And what we see here is that not much movement, which is actually good when you breathe it in like regular relaxed breathing. I mean, I don't expect to see many movements in the trunk. So, and then the next thing I will ask is that I'm going to ask you to breathe in as much as you can, and then breathe out as much as you can. Okay, breathe in and out. Okay, go on. Out without breathing in. No, don't breathe in, just once. Yes, that's good. Okay, and then relax. Okay, so we're gonna try it one more time. Just one in and one out as much as you can, and don't try to breathe in between. Okay, just once. Breathe in and out. Out, and relax. Nice. We have a nice, good example that we can talk about. And the first thing that I do next is that I ask the patient, so how did you feel? Like, where was the breathing? Where did you feel the movement in your body? And did you feel anything, like specific? Like
The intercostal muscle here.
Okay.
Between the ribs.
What do you feel?
And diaphragm a little bit. I feel the contraction.
You felt contraction while you were breathing in or out?
Especially out.
Especially out. Yeah, that's actually in line with what I saw, because in the forced expiration, breathing out at the end, I saw, and I hope you saw too, is that the chest was like going down, like kind of like into contraction, and that's what Abdul Ali also felt in his own body. And yes, we can also see that. And while you're breathing in, did you feel anything?
Not much.
Not much. Okay, so regardless of like what he's been feeling, is that I can detail it into what I saw is that he tends to breathe in and out to the chest primarily, even though there is a little bit of movement in the abdomen. The prominent movement was in the chest. Okay, so and also. Oh, another thing is that that's actually comes with the contraction of or prominent chest movement is that when he tries to like breathe out fully, what he does was that because this is falling down and contracting, we saw that there was bumping out of movement, like the abdomen was like popping out. Okay, yeah, popping out because there is the like contraction, and this is I would say that a very good example of a pelvic floor dysfunction type of breathing, which is described as paradoxical breathing in the literature. Which that's like kind of create all of the movement is going on in the chest, and this is actually like observed patients with a diaphragm paralysis, interestingly, but of course we know that Dr. really doesn't have any paralysis related to diaphragm, but what we can say is that there is an inactive, or we can, of course, like comment on that there is an diaphragm inactivity while he's breathing, and also in line with that, I suspect that he has a pelvic floor dysfunction. And he doesn't have any complaints yet, but he might be facing, like some problems related to this later. Don't worry. Okay, we don't know. So, yeah, that was a good example of the dysfunctional breathing that I often observe with the pelvic floor dysfunction patient. And how to change it, then we are going into the intervention from now on. And this is actually an exercise, it is a stage practice, and the original source of this practice, or a part of this practice, is actually a yoga instructor, and he's Godfrey, and he's a quite interesting person, and I learned this originally from one of his workshops in what was it called? Okay, I forgot the name. Oh, I remember. Bandha. Okay, so there is this term that is used in the yoga practice, and it's called bandha. And he has actually a whole book on bandha, and I recommend you to read it. It's a good read, even though it doesn't have any clue about the pelvic floor dysfunction or incontinence or anything that sort. It seems like the Godfrey or yoga people or ancient people were actually, they knew that there is something important going on in the pelvic area, and it was like valued and like practiced and described in the ancient resources. You can find it under the name of Bandha, Hara, Tanden in like Budo, martial arts, etc. That's the extreme. So this practice is actually based on that ancient knowledge and that ancient understanding of our body and the way our bodies, like work, function. So now, what I'm going to ask you to do is just nothing. Just breathe, comes in and goes out, and you just observe. And I'm going to ask you to tell me, where do you feel the movement when you just, like naturally breathing in and out?
The same as the last time?
No, just natural breathing. No extra breathing in or out, just natural, okay? And look at your trunk. And not look, but
Feel it.
your trunk, observe your trunk, and try to, try to tell me, where is the movement you feel the most during breathing, in your chest or abdomen or your maybe pelvic area into the hips.
Superior border of the abdomen.
You can just show me, okay, that's good. That's the hard part of doing this with a physics student, they tend to use a lot of terminology, okay? So so he showed me here, and this is also a very common place that I see with the pelvic floor dysfunction patients, that they tend to feel the movement prominently in here in the center of the trunk, which is around the edge of the rib cage.
But I don't have any dysfunctionality.
Then I will decide on you.
My own body.
Okay, so and then so I'm just gonna ask you to imagine a line in the center of your body, okay, from your head towards to your tailbone, and I'm gonna ask you to try to follow that line, okay, with the breathing, and it goes like this. When you breathe in, you go from head towards your tailbone. And when you breathe out, you go from your tailbone towards your head. And try to follow that line. And as you follow that line, how does it feel to you? Like, do you feel like you're doing something reverse? Or do you feel like you're unable to follow it until the tailbone?
I feel the whole body in my whole body.
Okay, and you don't have any problems following it?
I don't have any problems.
That's good. Okay, so you just keep following that line in your own pace of breathing, no extra breathing in or out, no push, no pull. Just breathe comes in, breathe goes out, and you follow the line.
From here to, to the
Yeah, exactly. So as the breath comes in, you follow it from up towards the tailbone, and as breath goes out, it goes
exactly.
tailbone towards up. And try to feel if there's any change in terms of the movement, where do you feel the movement in your body when you follow this line?
There's no movement. There's no movement.
Okay, so there's no movement.
Except for the movement that I feel in the beginning.
Which is?
The line.
Oh, okay. So can we say that it is more spread out than being in just one part of the body?
When I breathe in, it goes like this.
Okay.
When I breathe out, it goes outward, but not the same feeling when it goes in.
Okay. So when you are following this line, if you check the movement in the trunk, the first one we checked, and you said here, is there any change on that feeling?
Yes, but I still can feel it.
It's still here, but what changed?
Now I can feel like my muscle all working in this
Okay,
part.
so would you say that it's spread it out?
Yeah, now it's very done.
Okay, cool. Let's keep going. And for the next stage, I'm gonna ask you to focus on your navel, your belly button, okay? And just follow its movements, okay? So the navel or the belly button is gonna be moving up when the breath comes in. And then it goes down again when the breath comes out. And you don't need to do any extra work. You don't need
Just like this?
Yeah, you don't need to squeeze or push or pull the abdomen. It's natural that when the breath comes in like a balloon, the trunk will expand so that the navel is going to rise. And when you breathe out, the trunk.
No, I there's a huge feeling in the pelvic floor.
Interesting. Okay, just keep going, focusing on and following the navel, but you feel more and more in the pelvic floor, okay, or in the pelvis, let's say. Okay, so when it goes out and down, okay, so just follow it, and then I'm going to ask you to do this one thing, which is breathe in, out, and when it's done, try to breathe out a little bit more. Yes, that's it. And then breathe in, and then breathe out, and just a little bit more. And feel what happens when you try to do that extra exhale. You feel a contraction here, and I can see that too, and that is the exactly exactly that we would have seen with a dysfunctional pelvic floor. So now we're going to try to, like not to do it, okay? So for that, we have some tricks. And one is that to breathe out slowly and very small. And when you feel that the contraction is gonna come, don't go further. Okay, and focus on your nose, and like the breathing goes out through your nose, and just slow, small, and that's too much. Slow and small. And there's always this passive part. Yeah, breathe comes in. You don't need to do anything. You just let it, and it comes in. And then you let it, breathe goes out, and you just add a small extra, and then let it come in again, and out. And okay, it's not that obvious anymore, but I still see that this is moving first.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that? Okay, so try to focus on your nose, okay? And breathe goes in through your nose, and then you just blow it out really slowly like this. And then let it in. Let it out. Breathe. Let it in. And out, and very slow. Yeah. Do you feel the difference?
Last one.
Yeah. So what was that you're feeling?
Something like it wants to contract, but it can. It contracts like 80%, 90%.
Where?
Here.
There. Okay. So that's not in line with what I see. But what I saw was that this was relaxed, but then there was a tiny bit of activation in here.
Yeah, it's all the abdomen is working, but especially this part.
Okay, you still feel it in there. Okay, that's not what I would, like look for. But did you feel anything here?
No.
No. Okay, so let's try it a couple more times. Okay, and try to do it as low as you can. Breathe comes in. And breathe comes in. And goes out. Breathe comes in and goes.
Well, when we spoke about it, I felt
Okay.
just because we spoke about it.
I don't know, it might be, it probably has an effect, but then this was also different than the last time. Because there was this time of contraction here. Okay, but a little bit of activation in here. You felt that?
It's like a funny feeling. Yeah.
That's a great way to describe it. It's a funny feeling. Exactly. It's kind of like, it's not like a contraction, like this contraction, but it's more like you feel that ease and, like something holds you up, something supports you, like, it's like it's a good feeling, so to speak. A fun feeling is a great way to describe it. So that's what we are kind of looking for. And as you can see, I just try to I try to use some tricks to facilitate it rather than to tell him to squeeze your abdomen, pull your ASIs together, or etc. I just try to use the breathing, and especially the breathing out in the exhalation, which seems like it's automatically helps to facilitate this harmony in this pelvic abdominal area muscle working. So, and that was it. So just relax and for one last time, just observe your natural breathing. It's just breathe comes in and goes out. You don't need to do anything, and see if there's any change.
Where should we concentrate more?
Nowhere. No. You don't need to concentrate on anywhere. Like we checked in the first place. What do you feel? Where do you feel in with the breathing? Where is the movement?
The highest move is here.
Okay, still there, but then this was a natural breathing. Did you realize that?
But I'm in the supine position.
Yes, so it doesn't.
When I'm standing, I feel it in my chest.
Okay, that's a good point. Well, we'll see if there's a change in that. Okay, so in here, just relax and don't push, pull, no extra breathing and out, just natural breathing. Just natural. So natural, yeah, and see if there's any change. Where do you feel the movement? There, that's fair. Okay.
And a little bit of intercostal muscles.
Okay. Try to breathe in as much as you can. In, and then breathe out as much as you can. Out, 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 out. And relax. Okay, so we still, how did you feel? And where did you feel? Is there any change?
There is.
What is
Since
it?
a lot as the first time.
Yes.
First time I was here.
Yes.
Now it's more like here.
Okay, and?
But this one is more comfortable than the first one.
This one more comfortable.
Than the first one.
Okay, how about this contraction here? Did you feel that?
Yeah. It's like, not like.
Not like the first one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we see, and I hope you can too, that yes, there was still a pushing down, straining pattern with the breathing, but then the abdomen didn't pop out like it did in the first one. And also, he says that he felt more comfortable, which seems like, you know, the contraction that it's required to complete this task of breathing in and out maximally is reduced. And yes, the strength pattern didn't change at the end, but it changed a little bit. So using this, okay, this is like a motor learning practice that you will need to do, or your patient will need to do. Like I usually, you know, give it like twice a day, in the mornings and in the evenings. Or I tell them to do it before and after, you know, like an effort, like cleaning the house, going out for shopping, etc. And also morning and evening has the idea behind it is that before and after the daily effort. So as they keep doing that, it's very interesting that in a week, in 10 days, they tell me that they have a significant reduction in their stress incontinence. And then, of course, this is not just it, but what I do is that I kind of move this into you know, like combine it with movement, and I do it in the principle of the neurodevelopmental stages, which is supine to rolling, and then to crawling, and then to sitting towards to standing, and then it really works sort of like magic. But if you think about the nature of the problem, then it's not actually magic. It's very logical. So it takes like a couple of weeks to completely get over with the stress urinary incontinence problem. Or if there was a pain, with the pain really kind of like disappears magically in one session, and then it just goes away in a couple of weeks. And my view is that when we, you know, like strengthen things up in here, because this is sport for every movement in a single joint or in the whole body. So it kind of, the effect kind of like spreads from there and all around.
Hocam, someone is raised.
Where you feel breathing?
Hocam.
Okay, so where do you feel?
Just as I told you.
Okay.
I told you I know my body.
Huh?
I told you I know my body.
Yeah, but you know, like this is like a reference point for us that it's going to be. And usually that you will see that with urinary incontinence patients too, that they're going to tell you that they squeeze their abdomen all the time, and they feel the chest when they're sitting and breathing. And that's actually a reference point for us. We expect that to change, and that's how we follow up if the pelvic floor started to work in a more functional manner or not. So I'm going to ask you to try this exercise at home, morning and evening, and follow up on any changes.
Could you analyze it very quick? Sorry.
No, I will send you voice recording. You don't need to memorize it. That's another thing that I do, is that I don't expect my patients to obviously memorize it. So what I do is that I have a voice recording that I make. I kind of like leads it, like I just did in here, and I use that to, you know, I send them, and then they do it by listening to it.
Hocam, someone is raised up for the questions. If you can, if you want to, we left for the questions.
Yes, of course, please do. What is the question?
Mesa, can you open your microphone for the questions? No. So, hocam, if you want to, there is another questions for this.
Yeah, go ahead. What is it?
Okay.
I can actually see the question. Okay, so is the Kegel exercise one of the exercises? I mean, is it a choice to rehabilitate? Okay.
No.
No, it's not. Okay, so Kegel exercises based on the 1940s and okay, it's kind of hard for me to explain this, but I will try. So when Kegel originally came up with this exercises, which I read the original article that how they have been using the exercises actually. In the original article, he was, like really pointing out that it's important the contraction and relaxation to be in balance, and they try to achieve it by the only logical way that they know in the 40s, which is asking to contract and relax the pelvic floor from the patient. And the original way that they were teaching it to the patient was actually on the obstetric table. So like they were able to see the pelvic floor movement from with their eyes, and it was so important. So the Kegel that we use and teach today is quite different than the original one. So it's only just telling patient to just squeeze and lift, or even worse, like hold it when you're peeing, which is actually confusing to the whole system and neurophysiologically wrong, and it will cause more problems. So in terms of the stress incontinence, stress urinary incontinence or all of those other problems that I've been talking about that caused by the dysfunction in the pelvic floor mechanically, okay? So the separation in here is that if there is a mechanical problem, but there is no neurological problem, but it's just a muscle recruitment issue that affects the timing and the amount of the contraction, which is required automatically and flexibly, then Kegel doesn't work. Anything consciously that, anything that you bring conscious to the pelvic floor, it doesn't work, because it's kind of like, conflicting with its function. If you think about it, the function is automatic, the function is reflexive to the task, and it's not possible to, like train it to, to do all of these things, because in reality we cannot know. I mean, we have a lot of theories and understanding of, like what pelvic floor is doing in terms of different functions, which is, like continence related to urination and defecation. And also there is the sexual function part, which is, oh my God, there's so much detail to it. So the idea that we can actually teach it consciously is just not realistic. So it doesn't work with the mechanical, neuromuscular problems that related to pelvic floor and its dysfunction. But I'm going to put a but there. If there is a neurological problem, which the nerves that's innervating the pelvic floor muscles in that area is affected, then you can use the Kegel or that, all of the external things in the, principle of neurological rehabilitation, like how we wanted to evoke and, trigger the nerves and, like help them work again. You can use that principle, but not in the orthopedic neuromuscular dysfunction principle. Is it okay? Who is that? Sohib. Is it clear? Sohib. Okay. Next one, Anas. Hi, Anas Canım, how are you? So, in breathing exercise, our aim is to coordinate the chest muscles with the trunk muscles to work together or not. Yes, you can say that, but then it's not a relevant information. I don't know, like what's going on in the system. I just know that I want to make it work in harmony, and if that harmony includes that coordination of the chest muscles with trunk muscles, then yes, you can say that. Is it clear to you? Should this be done consciously or should it be placed in unconscious memory? Anil, I'm not sure what you're trying to ask with that question. What do you mean by consciously? Obviously, the patient is conscious to like participate, but what is? Can you please try to explain a little bit more to me, because I'm not sure I understand the question clearly. I got it. Thank you. Of course. Okay. Any questions? Abdullah, do you have any questions?
No.
As a patient, is it clear to you?
Very clear to me.
Okay. Any questions? No, there's no questions. So I did a really good job explaining it then.
Really did, yeah. Really did.
Why do we always put a pillow under the patient? Okay, that's a good question. You don't have to, but the idea is that if the patient is uncomfortable in the first place, then they're going to be unable to relax. So the point in using support in this is that to make the patient as comfortable as possible, so we can set the stage in a like a zero position, and then build on top of that. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Hiba. Any questions? Anything else? No questions? Really? Okay. It seems like I got really good at this exercise over the years. It was I am describing it to you right now, like I've been doing it for my whole life, but it was a long and agony process for me to come up to this position. I've tried everything, really. Okay. Can you explain transverse abdominis while breathing exercise should be every time contract? Inhale or exhale? Okay, Ayşegül. So that's actually what I've been trying to say, is that transversus abdominis is the muscle that has been subject to many research papers. So what they did was that they put EMG to transversus abdominis, and they figured out that there is a timing issue with people who had pain through transversus abdominis, but then it spreads out to the pelvic floor. So there is no one muscle that we are supposed to target in terms of the function or dysfunction. But why I use this is that when there is not a contraction, but a feeling of support in the transversus abdominis area, and that kind of like pulling in and up, activation and motion, then it tells me that when this person is doing anything like stand up, like moving or talking or breathing, then the activation is going to be from down, up, inside, and then it's going to be kind of like helpful rather than loading in the pelvic area. That's the idea. Other than that, transversus abdominis doesn't have a special or specific importance in here. I mean, can learning this breathing adaptation become automatic over time, or does it always require? Okay, that's actually a good question, Anil. No. Over time, the body or the nervous system, let's say, learns and adapts to use it. And my theory is that this is actually the original way that we learn how to use our body when we were babies and when we were kids. But somehow, like in that process of getting from kid to teenager and adult, and we put more importance into our mind and thinking over our bodies. So I believe that it kind of creates this disconnection, and body adapts in a way that is not so ideal to move and load here and there. So I believe that this is the original breathing that is natural to us. So what I experience is that when the patient starts to do it morning and the evening, like twice a day, and then over the course of a couple of weeks, you see that the body, the movement, the way that they use their body is changing, and then you don't need to do that exercises anymore, and you can just like let it go. It's not like you're gonna have to do this exercise for your whole life. It doesn't work like that. The body learns, and when they learn, and you forget to do it anyways. It's like a natural process. Is it clear, Anil? Okay. Is it okay? Should the patient squeeze pelvic floor muscles while breathing out? No, patient shouldn't squeeze anything in any time. Okay, the contraction of the pelvic floor or the activation of the pelvic floor should be automatic, reflexive, and the pelvic floor will decide that by itself, like when to contract or relax or how much. And if I'm going to give you more detail, pelvic floor has actually different parts. Even though it's small, there are different parts work in different contexts for defecation, urination, and sexual function. So there's no way that you can actually differentiate that. So it's not about this one muscle contracting and relaxing. So no talk about the pelvic floor, no squeezing the pelvic floor. Okay, forget about the pelvic floor. Is it clear, Nesrin? Okay, is it, please? Is it clear? Anıl bir şey demiş mi? I mean Anıl, okay. Anıl and Nesrin, okay. Anıl, is it clear? Can you please say something? I'm sorry, it was very incomprehensible. Thanks a lot, it was very clear. Okay, that's good. Anything else? Any questions? I am aware this is a bit hard to grasp with our, like this traditional way of thinking and traditional way of education. We always talk about some muscles and some structures and, like some specific things. That this is very, very far away from that traditional perspective. So it might be hard to grasp. So if there's anything that comes weird to you, please ask me now and I'll try to explain as much as I can. No.
So
questions?
I think it's finished.
Okay. Good. So try it, try to observe the breathing, try to use this exercise with your patients, and you can always write to me through my Instagram account if you have any questions, and I will try to answer them and help you out. And also I'm actually holding a case discussion session every week on Tuesday evenings from 8 to 10. And you can always, like attend to it. And in there, you can always talk about your patients, like we discuss it in a group, like case by case. And that's another option for you to understand the whole approach that I've come up with.
So thank you, Hocam, for joining workshop.
Thank
We are happy for
you.
this. And so workshop is over. Thank you to everyone that participated. And see you.
Goodbye.
Say thanks.
Would you like to say goodbye?
From whom I getting paid? Who will pay?
Okay, no one is paying. As always, it's just free work, which is fine. Okay, so bye.
Bye.